Hello, and welcome to your mini lecture on household surveys. Because households are the one universally recognized type of human groups, household surveys are great for understanding how people work together in groups. So anything having to do with group composition, cooperation, competition between group members, how people make decisions as parts of groups, how they schedule economic activities like agricultural rounds, how they work together as units of production, and household surveys are also good for helping find research assistants. So as the most easily analyzed socioeconomic unit, I recommend trying household surveys to get an idea of how people work together in groups. So what do you need to know to do a household survey? Well, first of all, you'll have to define what a household is. It varies from place to place. In the US, it might be who lives under the same roof. But remember that kinship systems vary. In some places it might be who sleeps together, but not who shares food. In some places it might be who eats together, but not who sleeps together. This is a household of Tsimane individuals who share food in lowland Amazonia and Bolivia. And this is their house, and it has no walls. So defining a household can be tricky because members in this society are quite fluid in terms of where people sleep. So you'll have to come up with a protocol of how to define a household and also a protocol to define or to categorize households that might not necessarily fall within that category. So if your definition is who sleeps together or lives together under the same roof, think about how the US Census might define college students living in dorms, for example. How would you classify those households? This is just one of the many decisions that you'll make as a researcher. Another thing you have to think about is who are you going to ask? Traditionally, we will ask the head of the household for information about the household. But again, think about how you will define this. It depends on the information that you want to get. So traditionally, a middle-aged male with a wife or wives and children living with him would have been defined as the head of the household. Now, if you want to get information about income and this reproductively aged male is the main wage earner, he might be a good person to ask. However, if you want to know about how that income is spent and the wife or the head wife is in charge of marketing, it might make more sense to identify her as the head of the household to get that type of information. Also be sure, again, to consider what you will do for these unusual or problematic households that fall outside of your definition. So if there is no reproductively aged male, or if there are multiple. In this Bolivian household example that you see, there are two adult males in the picture. The older male is suffering from a little bit of dementia, so he probably would not be the best person to ask for information about this household. All of these decisions will go into your research protocol. Okay, what do you ask? Traditionally, the types of things that people ask about in household surveys are wealth. How do you categorize wealth? Possessions owned, type of household, income. This is a multidimensional variable that will have many different things contributing to one measurement of wealth. Household composition also. Who's in the household, how many kids, how many adults, how many of each sex, ages, labor and time allocation, what each of these individuals are doing with their time, how they're creating this socioeconomic unit. Production and exchange, what they're creating, what they're trading. There's a lot of research on food sharing, for example. And we'll be talking more about some particular methods that you can use to gather each of these. So labor and time allocation we'll be looking at in our behavioral observation module. Production and exchange, you can again do similar types of observations where you basically sit outside the household and watch what comes in and what goes out. But a lot of this information you can get by survey data. Okay, so you're going to do a survey. Make sure to test it ahead of time. Make sure your questions are clear, that people understand what you're asking, and also that your survey will retrieve the information that you're interested in, and also, if possible, use an independent sample to test your survey so that people aren't thinking about the old questions or confused by which version of the question you're on. If you ask people in another community or households that aren't in your sample the questions to test them, then you can use the final versions only in your sample that you're testing. Okay, that's it for our short presentation on household surveys. You can use this information along with information from the reading to create your resource guide. Have fun!